Hello, everyone. This is Emily Burley, president of ELS. Welcome to today's ELSX, and thank you for joining us. ELS is a community that brings together executive assistants supporting the world's most influential leaders. We cultivate professional development by providing a platform for assistants to connect, collaborate, and contribute solutions to their greatest challenges. We're also the creator of the ELS Forum, a professional development experience for executive assistants held in 26 cities worldwide. At the forum, attendees gain support, training, and inspiration from world renowned instructors and peers to discover a renewed sense of passion and purpose in their career. If you're interested in attending a forum, you can find out more at elsforum.com. Today, I am thrilled to partner with the award winning speaker and author Erica Gilchrist. Erica has earned the title of the Unstoppable Woman. She is regarded as one of the most energizing, engaging, and captivating speakers in the industry. She is the creator of the brazen brand WTF Women Thriving Fearlessly. As a published author of 13 books, Erica is an expert in personal development, leadership training, and conflict management skills for women. She has been featured as one of the 15 most powerful women on the South Side of Chicago and Chicago Women's Magazine and in Rolling Out Magazine. Hello and welcome, Erica.
Hello there, Emily, and hello, everyone who is on the webinar and those who are listening afterward. I am thrilled to be here, and I really appreciate you all having me here with you. This is amazing, and I just want to say that the ELS Forum is filling a need that has been overlooked for so long. Those who support those who are running businesses that affect consumers. I love it. And congratulations on the growth. I'm so elated for ELS Forum. Emily, congratulations. And please continue to grow and move forward.
Thank you, Erica. And I am, Erica is a fellow Chicagoan alongside myself. So we're looking forward to working together as we have in the past. But today, Erica's really going to continue our conversation, our month-long series on leadership. And as assistants, you're in a real constant state of giving. Which you, of course, embrace wholeheartedly to really carry out your job effectively. But you might be overlooking that crucial element that can make or break your career, which is leadership, and of course the leader within you. So there will be an opportunity to get your questions answered at the end of the webinar. So go ahead and submit your questions at any time via the questions tab, which is on the webinar toolbar on the right-hand side of your screen. We will also be recording today's webinar, which will be sent to you tomorrow, along with a certificate of attendance. And you can also download those slides as a reminder on that handout tab on your webinar toolbar. So at this time, it is my pleasure to hand it over to Erica.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So, and coming up with the title of this, Executive Assistants Leading the Charge. And that's exactly what you are. Many of you may realize that you are a leader, and some of you may not. Some of you may see yourselves as supporters of those who lead, but you are leaders in your own right. And there's a lot of challenges that are very, very unique to you and to you alone. And I'm going to go over some of the things that you can do to focus on you to be a leader who supports those who lead. And before I get into all of that, I really just want you to have a full scope, a full understanding of who this crazy lady is on the other end of your speaker yelling at you. I am Erica Gilchrist, and my story is something straight out of a Lifetime movie. I cannot make this up. That is me on the screen. I was 5 years old at the time, And I was raised by my grandmother. And that little space that you see in between my lips, I call that my window of opportunity, because I was the kid in school who got in trouble for talking too much, but now I get paid for it. So that worked out really, really well for me. So at the age of 3, my father passed away in a tragic train accident. And my mother, who was stricken with grief, she abandoned my sister and me. So here I am. I'm 3 years old and I have no parents. Thank goodness for grandmothers. So my grandmother took my sister and myself in and she raised us, which sounds like a happy ending, but just keep listening. While I was in that household, my grandmother raised her kids, her grandkids, and her great grandkids. It was always crowded. She couldn't keep an eye on everything that was going on in the house. And while I was there, I was sexually violated by those who were supposed to be there to protect me. So, as you can imagine, that confused me about the role that men were supposed to play in my life. You know, were they my predators or were they my protectors? And I took that mentality into my preteen years, into my teen years, into my young adult life. And I left the house when I was about 19 years old. I decided I'm getting out of here. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to conquer the world. And I don't care what you think you know at the age of 19, you don't know jack, because I thought I knew everything there is to know about life and I was going to go out there, I'm going to make tons of money and I'm going to be a movie star. None of that happened. Instead, the world basically just tore me apart. And I found myself in not one, but 2 abusive relationships. And in escaping the last one, I found myself sleeping in my van until it got too cold. And then I moved into a shelter where I shared a single bedroom with 5 other people. And I was just thinking, like, life can't be this hard. Like, it just can't be this difficult. And in my state of grief, I tried to commit suicide. Well, clearly that did not work, and thank goodness it did not. And the way I got out of that, I went into therapy and I learned a lot about who I was and what it is I wanted to contribute to the world. And I learned that all of those things that happened to me as a young girl, they were not my fault. And I was carrying fault that entire time. So fast forward, as a young adult, I've had a lot of different jobs in my life. Some of the roles that I've had in my life, I was an executive assistant to the president of a company. It was National Corporate Services downtown in Chicago. And I was there before the furniture got there. So, I mean, he was brand spanking new. And there were a lot of barriers. There were language barriers. He was not from the United States. And there were cultural barriers between the 2 of us. Now, mind you, I'm a young woman in her 20s, and I have all of this responsibility, and I'm communicating with someone who is not accustomed to allowing women to lead. So there were a lot of barriers in performing my tasks during all the years that I was there. And a lot of times I had to make things that were inside of his head come to fruition, but he wouldn't let me in his head. It was just kind of like 1 or 2 words and it was like, go. So me asking questions wasn't always welcomed. I was also an administrative assistant. And in that role, I worked for multiple people. And sometimes the tasks were in direct contradiction. So, you know, I had to resolve them quickly in order to be productive. My administrative and my EA roles were complete when I decided that I was going to start my own business. So fast forward a couple of decades, I am now the CEO and president of WTF, but that does stand for Women Thriving Fearlessly. Some people know me as the Unstoppable Woman. That is a brand that I've had for a very long time. And in listening to my story, I'm sure you can understand how I earned that title. I went from homelessness to now owning. I own the largest expo for women in business in Chicagoland. It is on the 99th floor of Willis Tower. Now, for those of us who live or are from Chicago, it's the Sears Tower. It's always going to be the Sears Tower, but I have to be politically correct and call it what it is now, and that is Willis Tower. So I know a lot about what it means to overcome adversity in order to accomplish really big things. And my mission, that's me, by the way, all the way in the front. And if you can see the screen on your screen, you see I'm telling my story. I really encourage people to share their stories in order to build relationships with other people when it's appropriate. My mission is two things. It is to help women in personal and professional development at my expo, helping women become better versions of themselves. And the other thing, I do the same thing through speaking engagements. I travel across the country doing this because I can't do anything else. So when I say I can't do anything else, I'm so serious. Like, I can't do another job. I can't punch a clock. I can't do that right now. It's just not in my DNA. And I am in love with what I do. And I'm happy, I'm elated to share all the lessons that I've learned and to provide some tangible tools that you can start using immediately. The how for me is extremely important. I'm a motivator, but motivation doesn't last. I am an empowerer. I am someone who gives you tools that you can use as soon as this webinar is over. And that's really, really important to me. So now I'm going to jump right into the content. So, and I encourage you to go ahead and type in your questions. I love questions because I want to make sure that you get what you need from this webinar. So please don't be shy. As you can probably tell, I'm very forthcoming, I'm very vulnerable, and I'm very transparent. So I'm okay with you asking me questions that most people would deem uncomfortable. So we're going to talk about 3 keys to leading a strong-willed leader. Now, I don't want you to confuse strong-willed with being a bad boss, because you can have a really good boss, a really good leader, and have them be really strong-willed. Most leaders are. Although a bad boss and a strong-willed person can be one in the same. So with these keys, I'm going to go through them one at a time. And as I'm going through them, I want you to think about your current situation. Maybe there's something you're currently dealing with, and ask yourself if these tools I'm going to provide is something that you can use. So number 1, validate, validate. And I'm going to say it again, validate. So here's what I mean by that. I want you to speak as if you are building on the mission of an idea. So let's say that your strong-willed leader decides that, you know what, there's some budget cuts and we're going to have to let a couple of people go. But maybe you've researched a couple of ways where, you know what, if we cut corners here or there where it doesn't affect the quality of the service that we provide, I think we can save a couple of jobs. So when I say speak as if to build on the mission of the idea, not necessarily the idea itself. So let's say you may say something like, well, you know what? Budget cuts are necessary. I totally agree with that. So we just validated it. But because I've discovered a few ways where we can cut some corners, I'm going to share them with you, and maybe we can save a couple of jobs. So we can actually save about $165,000 next year without layoffs. We can freeze new hires. We can reduce the work week for some. We can do potluck holiday parties instead of outsourcing everything. Maybe we can start hosting more virtual meetings as opposed to flying people in to in-person meetings. Maybe all the non-vital equipment upgrades that we want, we can postpone those if they're non-vital. So we've done 2 things. 1, we have validated the mission of their idea. And the mission of their idea was to save money because budget cuts are necessary. But we didn't agree with the way they were going to go about it. So here's the difference. If they say, well, we have to lay a couple of people off, budget cuts are necessary, and you said, well, that sucks. I don't think that's a good idea. What about these people's families? How are they going to feed them? How are they going to pay their bills? And those are all valid concerns. But if you validate the mission of what it is they're trying to accomplish, and then you offer alternative strategies, it's more likely to sink in for someone who's really strong-willed, because in their mind, come heaven or high water, they need to save this money. And for some people, it's a knee-jerk reaction. The most common thing most people think about with budget cuts is laying off. You be the leader to tell the strong-willed leader, I absolutely agree, these budget cuts are necessary, but I figured out a different way to do it. It may not sit well with some of the employees, but it's certainly better than laying them off. So make sure that you don't miss the point of their position, because if you miss the point, you are in for a back and forth that you may not necessarily be prepared to accommodate. So number one is to validate, and I'm going to add another one, validate the mission, not necessarily the idea. Okay. And again, ask me anything that you want. I got a lot of content to cover, and I know you're going to have a lot of questions, and I'm excited about it. So I'm going to go on to the second one. The second key is to stand your ground. When I was an administrative assistant for multiple people, one of them was a veteran, and he had no problems talking about his time when he served his country, and even his language used some words and phrases that the military would use. He would say stand down, and not in a derogatory way, but just in his regular conversation, you can hear some of the vernacular he would use, and you go, okay. So even if I didn't know for sure that you were in the military, I could tell by your conversation. And for him, in order to get through to him, sometimes I had to use phrases like, well, sir, I'm your boots on the ground. And from my vantage point, I can see circumstances coming down the pike that might get missed by the control center. I get to see things that you don't see. So I'm going to repeat that, because I knew that military strategy and words were something that he used quite often to convey communication. I used that in order to communicate with him. So when he pushed back on me and I said, no, you know what? This is the way I believe we need to do this. I'm your boots on the ground. He knows what that means. He's not the one who's in the trenches fighting the war, so to speak. And from my vantage point, I can see circumstances coming down the pike that's going to get missed by you because you're not on this end. That's something I actually said, and I was really nervous about saying it because I didn't know whether or not he was going to get offended because I'm not a veteran. I did try to explain it another way, and it didn't seem to get through to him. But when I phrased it that way, it was just, I don't know how to explain it. The facial expression softened, and he's just like, okay, I get it now. I get it. So there are going to be times when you know you need to stand your ground. You're going to be extremely nervous about it. Sometimes you work with people who they know your heart and they're like, I know you mean well, and they're going to entertain what it is you have to say. And then there's the other ones who are like, well, no, I'm the leader, being very strong-willed, and I know what's best. If you know, like you know that your idea is one that is going to move the company forward, stand your ground. One, you're going to earn their respect. You have to do it in a way that is still diplomatic, that is still professional. Nobody wants to have their right hand and their left hand, because that's who you are. You're actually both hands, and you cave every single time there's an idea. I'm sure they have a lot of people around them who are yes men and yes women. You don't need to be that person. The whole reason you're in that position is because you are called to serve. This is an element of service that a lot of people miss. If the mission of the organization or company is XYZ and you believe in that, there are going to be times when your strong-willed leader will lose sight of that. And they're relying on you to remind them of those things. So sometimes you're going to have to stand your ground. Number 3, I'm going to say this one slowly. Have the conversation with them before you have the conversation with them. And some of you all are just like, wait, Erica, what? Okay, here's what I mean by that. Sometimes you have to converse with them without them in the room. It's kind of like a one-person show where you're going through the conversation by yourself. You've been working with them. You have a pretty good idea of what they're going to say. So go ahead and have the conversation with them before you actually have it with them. So get all the possible scenarios out of your head and into the air. So pretend like you're actually conversing with them and you want to play it all the way through. And what this is going to do for you is that it's going to decrease the chances of allowing emotional triggers to lead the conversation. Now, I know that there are going to be times when situations occur in the moment and there's no time for this step. Like, you're just going to have to respond in the moment. If that's the case, then I refer you to the first 2 steps of validating and standing your ground. But this one right here, it allows you wiggle room so that you don't accidentally put your foot in your mouth. Because everybody has a situation they can recall at a moment's notice when they wish they could have a do-over. I know I have several of them. That list is really, really long. And what I have learned is that having the conversation with them before I have the conversation with them, it helps me. It helps me a lot. Now, if at any point it gets too heated, you can use exit lines. We are human, and there may be things going on in our personal lives that spill over into our professional setting, and our patience is a little bit shorter than it would be under normal circumstances. So something that I've actually said before, and at the time I didn't know what they were called, but this is an exit line. So I basically told her, this is a different boss, I told her, I said, you know, here's where I am. You're my boss, and I want to show you respect. But right now, I'm so angry, I can't offer that to you. Now, in the Q&A, I know someone's going to ask me to repeat that. So I'm going to repeat it here. You can listen to the recording, and if you want, I can type it out, and Emily can send it to you. So what I said was, you're my boss, and I want to show you respect. But right now, I'm so angry, I can't offer that to you. And I politely and professionally excused myself from that situation. That's what happens when you have the conversation with them before you have it. Because when it gets too heated, you're not as in the moment as you would have been had you not had that discussion before. So to recap, those 3 keys: validate, stand your ground, and have the conversation with them before you have the conversation with them. Now, self-doubt may be one of the biggest obstacles you are going to face. And I'm going to share with you the number 1 cause of self-doubt, and we're going to talk about how to just crush it. So if you just look at the image on your screen, a mirror, a standard mirror, not the ones in a carnival or the circus, it's only going to reveal that what is. That's it. A mirror does not make up stuff. It doesn't create stuff. It can only reflect that what is. Now, looking at the mirror on your screen, you see how it's kind of distorted because there's splashes of water or oil on it, and it can completely skew your view of yourself. The number 1 cause of all of those splatters on your mirror is living deeply rooted in past experiences. Living deeply rooted in past experiences. And there's a lot to that. So the source of self-doubt, the source of you living deeply rooted in past experiences, one of them can be insecurity. You know, growing up, maybe you were made to feel like you weren't good enough. Maybe someone once told you that what it is you thought you were really good at, you kind of sucked at, and you just became really insecure about stuff. Maybe there were people around you who you felt just had more than you did. Your belief system impacts the self-doubt. Likely, whatever the belief system was in the house where you grew up is what you were taught. And we take that with us when we leave home. And sometimes our belief systems can make us feel guilty about some of the decisions that we make. At any time, you reserve the right to change your belief system, but it's kind of difficult, isn't it? Because your belief system has been deeply rooted in you ever since your first memory. So it's kind of hard to do that. But that is an influencer in our self-doubt. Your friends, I mean, if you want to call them friends, they might be associates at this point. But sometimes if they're doing really well and you don't think you are, or if they feed into your insecurities, to be perfectly honest with you, a lot of people are broken and they don't know how to help you. They're just basically regurgitating on you the self-doubts of themselves. And so because they're your friends and they're close to you, you receive that, and now that's more splatters on that mirror. Now, magazines, and this includes online articles too. But growing up with my grandmother, we had magazines all over the house. And when I looked at images of women, and then I looked in a mirror, I went, I'm not good enough. I don't look like that. I don't have that particular curve. I don't have any of those things. And also online articles that talk about how someone is excelling in your particular arena. And you're reading about all these successful executive assistants and how they helped their leaders do this and that. And you're like, I don't think I've done that. I don't think I'm even capable of doing that. That contributes to your self-doubt. Your parents or legal guardians, very similar to the belief system, they're going to teach you what they know. And that's all they're ever able to do, is teach you what they know. As you get older, you have your own life experiences. Your belief system and the values that you grew up with may start to shift, and it may start to contradict what your parents or legal guardians told you. Now, there are some women who come to me and say, you know, I had it out with my mom or my dad because I just don't agree with them anymore. Growing up, they always told me this. But as I got older, I saw things differently, and that was a problem. But it was too late, because by that time, they really believed what their parents told them. Television, on the news, here in Chicago, this is Event Central. I'm always seeing events like expos featured on television, the Chicago Expo, the such and such Expo. And I'm like, well, mine isn't featured on television, no matter how many times I try and get it on there. And then that self-doubt kicks in. Maybe it's not good enough to be featured on television. Just because it wasn't on television does not mean it's not good. And just because you see imagery and dialogue and plots, made up plots on television that make you feel bad about yourself does not make them real. Don't even get me started on social media. Good grief. You all know that stuff isn't real, right? So with social media, do you know that by the time it reaches your screen, it has gone through like several filters? So if you see, for example, a couple on social media and they're like, oh, you know, we just had margaritas and blah, blah, blah. You didn't see the fight they had an hour before that where they were calling each other names. You saw the aftermath of that. And a lot of us will idolize those we see on social media. And then the self-doubt kicks in. Childhood experiences. Maybe you were the child who got really poor grades. It was no fault of your own. It was to the best of your understanding. Maybe you were surrounded by other kids who dressed, or at least you thought, dressed better than you did. Maybe you were bullied. Maybe you felt really unprotected as a child. All of these things impact all of those splatters on the mirror, and they make you view yourself a little bit differently. So if living deeply rooted and past experiences is your thing, guess what? That's going to lead to imagined future projections. Translation, you're going to create problems that don't actually exist. I don't know how many of you felt this when you looked at this image. I felt it the moment I looked at it. I'm like, "Ooh, get that stuff off the mirror." Like in my mind, I had a squeegee, and I'm like, I can't look at myself through all of that stuff. But that came with years of work, years of personal development. If you are deeply rooted in past experiences, you are going to start to create stuff that does not exist. I know I brought you down a dark road, but I never leave you there. So, we're going to talk about how we can crush it. We're going to talk about how we can crush self doubt. You all with me? I know you are. So, first, trash the inner hate talk. Trash the inner hate talk. I was taught this in therapy, and it has served me very well. That inner hate talk, I gave them a name. Her name is Sasha. And whenever that starts to kick in, I say, well, Sasha, you are not welcomed here, and I refuse to listen to you. So when I tell you to trash the inner hate talk, you can give them a name or not, or you can just simply talk directly to that voice, that thing that tells you you're not good enough, you're not doing this right. Oh my God, they're going to hate it. You're going to get fired. All of that stuff. Tell them, no, you're not welcomed here, and I refuse to listen to you. Say bye-bye to enablers. Those are people who encourage and feed your inner hate talk. They may say something like, yeah, you always did suck at that. You kind of suck at it, Erica. Now, those people actually have a name, but you have to say goodbye to them. And for some of us, it's going to be extremely difficult because maybe they're related to you. Maybe they've been in your lives for so long, you're not exactly sure how to get rid of them. And that's a whole nother webinar. But at the very least, create more distance between you and the other person. You can even interrupt them mid-sentence and say, hey, listen, I have something else I have to do, so I'm going to go. Do not encourage enablers to stay around you. Stop comparing yourself to others. The best way to feel horrible about yourself is to compare yourself to other people. So someone else did something and it was fantastic. They're getting a lot of praise, and you're thinking, oh man, I didn't think of that. I kind of suck, right? So stop comparing yourself to others, because I'll be honest with you, nobody can do what I can do like I can do it. And the same goes for you. Nobody can do what you can do just the way you can do it. And focus on what could go right. You want to be aware of the downside to certain decisions, but don't let that be like your primary focus. So when I wanted to start my expo, the reason I started it is because I went to a women's expo in Chicago and it sucked. It was horrible. But I'm the type of person, I don't complain about stuff. I do something about it. I said, you know what? I'm gonna start my own expo. And the moment I made that decision, all I heard was, can I really do this? Do I have the chops to even produce something of that magnitude? That was the inner hate talk. So fortunately, I'd gotten rid of all the enablers in my life by the time I wanted to start an expo. So I didn't have to worry about that. But then I started to ask myself, what if mine isn't as big as this one? Like, what if I don't get nearly as many people as this one does? That's comparison. I'm comparing myself to something I just said I thought sucked. Like, how weird is that? And then I went through like all of the logistical nightmares that can darken my doorstep, like the day of the event. But then I said, nope, you know what? I'm going to shift my focus to all of the women who are going to walk away with a burning desire to be better versions of themselves. And that far outweighed any flaw that can possibly happen in the programming. So what I did was number 4, I focused on what could go right. So let's make these tangible. When you are performing your task, you're going through your day-to-day, and when you're not sure whether or not you should bring up an idea, whether you should make an independent decision because you are plagued with self-doubt, you crush it by trashing the inner hate talk. You say goodbye to the enablers. Don't compare yourself to others, and I want you to focus on what could go right, not what could go wrong. Don't do that. Your body's going to follow wherever your mind takes it. We're going to get into some unconventional ways to recoup after you have a really stressful day. Now, I can't stress this enough. These are unconventional. Some of the things I'm going to mention, your eyebrow's going to go up. It's going to go up involuntarily, and I'm okay with that. But I'm just letting you know up front, this isn't just the standard stuff that everyone usually does or tries. Okay? These are unconventional. We good there? Yes. Okay. So the first one, sing a happy childhood or childlike song. I don't know how many Big Bang Theory fans we have out there. I love the show, and something that relieves my stress, I sing the Soft Kitty song. And if you are not familiar with it, it's okay. During the Q&A, if you want me to sing it, I promise you I'll sing it. It takes like 12 seconds. But I will sing the Soft Kitty song over and over again. It puts a smile on my face. It makes me laugh, and I'm able to decompress just a little bit. Number two, read something positive, but read it slowly. Now watch this. I'm going to put a quote up here by Maya Angelou. Most of you have read it. Love recognizes no barriers. It jumps hurdles, leaps fences, penetrates walls to arrive at its destination full of hope. But now I'm going to read it again. I'm going to take it off the screen, but I'm going to read it again. I'm going to read it slowly. And I really want you to listen to the difference. Love recognizes no barriers. It jumps hurdles, leaps fences, penetrates walls to arrive at its destination full of hope. It has a different spin on it. If there's something motivational to you, it could be scripture, it could be a poem, it could be anything that brings you a sense of calm, but read it very slowly and read it over and over again. Don't read it like we did in school when they called on you and say, Erica, read paragraph 3. You need to read this methodically so that the words actually sink in. And it forces you to slow down your breathing. Number 3, I want you to actually schedule do anything or nothing time. That one right there, that might be a little difficult for you because we're doers. We are accustomed to doing things. And it's going to feel awkward because you're like, all right, so I've scheduled this time and I'm just sitting here. It feels like I should be doing something, and you are absolutely nothing. Maybe this is the time to watch that YouTube video on how to knit, I don't know, a cat hat or pillow or something like that. That's stuff that you say you don't have time for. I want you to literally make time for that. I hired someone to assist me at my expo, and she was helping me on the spreadsheet. I know how to do spreadsheets, but I can't stand it. I like to do what I do best and outsource the rest. And there was this one line, and it was totally black. The time was there, but everything was black. And I'm like, Tanya, what is this right here? She's like, oh, that's for you. What do you mean? She says, that's the time for you to do whatever it is you want to do that is unrelated to the expo. The day of my expo, you're telling me you're giving me time to do nothing. It was only 10 minutes. She's like, go in a closet, go in the stairwell, whatever. Meditate. I don't care what you do. Get out of my face for these 10 minutes. And you know what? I loved it. I absolutely loved it. You can do the yoga against the wall pose. Okay, full disclosure. I'm almost there. I can almost do it. I have to put something like under my back. But I kept reading that, this pose, if you do this for 10 minutes a day, it has all of these healing properties. For those of you who are like me and you can't quite get into that pose yet, there's a variation. No worries. So this is the one that I do now. Actually, what I do right now is like a hybrid between, the two of those. But I get on the floor and my feet or my legs, some portion of me touches the wall. I don't know how to explain it. I just need you to try it because it works. Go on vacation in your mind. Before I leave this place, I strive to see the northern lights. I'm going to Alaska. I am going to see the northern lights. That I can't even explain how deeply rooted that is in my DNA. I have to see that. So what I do is I'll go on YouTube and I'll watch like an hour of video footage of different people who filmed the northern lights, and I imagine myself there, and it is just phenomenal. This one, I I told you it was going to be unconventional. All right. So if it goes against your belief system, don't do it. If it's something that's going to bring you stress, don't do it. But for some people, I promise you, I don't know why or how, but swearing for some people, it relieves stress because it's the words they wish they could say in front of someone, but they can't because it's unprofessional. So when they get by themselves, they take a deep breath and they just unleash. And for some, it helps them. You can also perform a random act of kindness. You know how buttery your veins feel, like you have melted butter going through your veins when you do something really nice for someone, and it's not because of reciprocity. You're not expecting anything. You saw another human who is in need, and you were in a position to help them, and there may not have been anyone else around, and you helped them. That feeling reduces stress. And you can purposely perform a random act of kindness, and you decide what that is. You don't have to have money, but if you do, and you know someone who's doing a GoFundMe campaign for, a hardship or whatever the case may be, maybe you can buy the person behind you coffee, anything, pay someone's toll who's behind you. A random act of kindness will bring you to a level that is a lot less stressful before you did the random act of kindness. The last one, look at old photos that make you smile. So I was an MC for an event for college students. There were about 2,000, there's a lot of college students there. And there was this high level testing. These were the best of the best. And when you are in school and you're a straight A student, it's kind of special until you get to an event where there's 1,000 other people just like you, and then you're not so special. But now you're faced with, you got to take this test, to see where you place. It's a lot of pressure, and I could feel the tension in the room before they were going into the classroom. So this is what I did. I told the DJ, I went up on stage by myself. I told the DJ, I said, hit the music because I'm going to do a little dance. We're going to break the tension in the room. And what happened is that my student leaders, they got up on stage with me. And here's the photo. I decided to get up there and break the tension, help them de-stress before they went in there. My student leaders and some students got up on stage with me. And every time I look at this photo, it makes me smile. I was a keynote speaker in Pittsburgh for an organization that helps companies understand how domestic violence affects their bottom line. And I mean, like the mayor was in there. It was just a lot of things that were happening in that space. And this woman approached me. She told me her story. I was so moved by how she handled it. I couldn't help it. I said, may I hug you? She said, yes. And the photographer captured that moment. I had no idea the photographer was anywhere near us, but apparently he was watching. And when I hugged her, he captured it, and I loved it. This photograph makes me smile. And there was a presentation I did for a group of new authors, and I got so excited for them. I'm usually in the moment when I'm on stage, and I got so excited. I was wearing 5-inch heels, which I never do because I have flat feet. But this day, for some reason, my crazy self decided to wear 5-inch heels. I got so excited. I did like this little weird kick move where I kicked my leg back in the air, and they caught it. They caught the moment. And I look at this photograph and it makes me smile. So the last one was look at old photos that make you smile. Okay, I'm looking at the time. Oh, I'm so great. I got like 60 seconds left. So I hope that you have gotten some tidbits out of how, as an executive assistant, you can lead the charge. Now, some of you have connected with me on LinkedIn already, and I've accepted the connection request. I encourage you to follow me on social media. If you need to follow me, all you need to know is my name because it's plastered everywhere. Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, it doesn't matter. If you know Erica Gilchrist, then you can find me. I really appreciate the time. And Emily, I am ready for all of those questions you may have.
Awesome, Erica. Okay, so we have several questions, and I'm just going to remind everyone, if you'd like to submit a question for Erica, you can do so under the questions tab on the right-hand side of your screen on the toolbar. So our first question is about offering that advice that you really talked about in, I think, the first section of your slides, your presentation around the validate section.
Yes.
What is your advice, Erica, for assistants that feel like their advice is ignored? So they do try to validate and they do try to offer advice to their bosses or their team, and it's ignored.
Okay,
Or
so
it's viewed negatively, like, oh, they're just trying to stir the pot. They're just trying to add problems. What is your advice in overcoming that?
so that's something that actually happened to me. And one of the things that I learned in therapy, actually, when I feel like I'm not being validated or that my views and opinions are being belittled, is to bring the attention right back to that very thing and ask them directly. But you ask them in a way that, here, let me just say it. So if I were to say, well, I don't think that firing people is the right answer. I figured out a different way to do this. And I get a response. It's like, well, that just doesn't make any sense. And they just keep talking. So my response to that is like, okay, so I want to make sure I'm understanding you correctly. The bullet points that I just laid out in order to save money, as opposed to laying off people, you're saying that that's not a good idea. Can you elaborate on that for me? I bring it right back to them when it's ignored, or when they think that it's a stupid idea. If they think that I'm trying to just start mess, I clarify that. Sometimes they hear what they want to hear and they actually did not hear you. And other times it's simply because of who you are. Sometimes people don't like you. That is a reality. And sometimes no matter what you say, they're not going to like it. They're going to think you're stirring the pot, but have that same idea come from a different person, and it's the best idea ever. So my advice is to bring it back to them in a very calm fashion. And I would speak a little slower. I want to make sure that I'm understanding you correctly. And when you lead with that statement, it's non-combative. You're leading with, I heard you, but let me make sure that I understand you because what you said to me was important. That's the impression that they're going to have. That would be my advice for that.
Erica, next question we have is about how do you try to get, I guess, offer advice or step up as a leader to a boss that is extremely private and shut off? So say you support someone who doesn't let you in on important decisions that they're making, important projects that they're working on. They keep you shut off. And so that limits your ability to kind of step up as a leader and assist them. What advice would you have in kind of breaking down those barriers so you can, in fact, offer some leadership to your leader?
Vulnerability attracts vulnerability. And we don't know why this person is being so private. There's a number of factors that can contribute to that. Maybe they actually don't think their idea is good and they don't want to look stupid. Maybe for them, they might think that this idea is something that could be shared, and they'll lose it. So there might be a trust issue that's going on. So without knowing the reason behind why they're being so private, I would open with vulnerability, but nothing so deep where you just weird them out. Like, I wouldn't do that. So for example, if there is a new project, it's very clear there's something new that's going on, and you ask, hey, what's going on? Or, what's the new project? What's coming down the pike? And they're being really secretive about it. The way I would approach that, I may say something like, in growing up, I had a lot of siblings, and this is true. I had a lot of siblings. I have 6 sisters and 4 brothers. And a lot of times I was the go-to person for help, but I realized I couldn't help them because they didn't want to share with me what exactly was going on. Now, I'm not saying that you're doing that, but I do want to let you know that I'm here to assist you. And the best possible way for me to do that is to know what's happening. Is there something maybe you want to ask me that you don't know? Like, what is it that what would it take in order for me to learn more about the project that's going on? And that's an open-ended question. Nothing like, are you hiding something? Or why are you hiding this from me? That's a very accusatory approach. Open with a little vulnerability, nothing that's just going to be devastating, but then just ask them flat out, open-ended, what is it going to take in order for me to help you with whatever it is that you're working on right now? If they're still shut off, there's something there. There are a whole bunch of reasons you are not made privy to. And after you ask and ask and ask, and they just keep shutting down, there's not a whole lot you can do about it. You can't make someone or force someone to tell you, but the only thing I would suggest to you is to keep chiseling away with open-ended questions in a non-accusatory fashion. At some point, you do have to make a decision. Is this worth it for me? Can I thrive in an environment where there's such a lack of communication? And you're going to have to come to a really hard realization. If the answer is no, what is your next step? Because you can't thrive in an environment where someone refuses to communicate vital information for you. I hope that helps.
Erica, we have a great question here about guiding your executive or your boss when you feel like they have maybe been misguided. So say, for example, you support someone who is easily influenced by others in the office, maybe a leadership team or someone else on the team, that you feel like it's incorrect. And you're certainly privy to other information that would help you come to that conclusion. So what are some communication strategies that you have for communicating and advising the person you support that they may have been misguided?
As you're asking this question, I'm smiling from ear to ear because I actually had this happen. Okay, I'm so excited to share this. So remember I said that I was an administrative assistant for multiple people. It was very clear that there were two of them who did not like each other. They just didn't, for whatever reason. I didn't care. And one of them said, well, Erica, I'm going to need you there was some phone calls they wanted me to make. They wanted me to move forward with this project in a very specific manner. Now, I already knew that the other person, I hate to say it this way because it just sounds like something out of a soap opera, but it was really real. I already knew that the other person was kind of setting them up. And so what I did was I asked a boatload of questions. I said, okay, so listen, I want to make sure that I'm doing this correctly. So I'm going to have some questions for you, and I'm going to write these down. I didn't need to write them down, but I had to give the appearance like this was just an informal, let me make sure I understand you thing. So I'm like, so we're going to call the such and such of this company, and this is what we're asking for, correct? Okay, great. Write that down. And what exactly are we trying to get from them? And they would tell me, this is what we're getting. Now, if we do that, wouldn't that put us in a bad position? Because we have XYZ going on over here, but if we ask them for this, it's going to make us look as if we're being greedy and not agreeing to, or do you even think that's a problem? And they would stop and think and go, okay, because that's exactly what he did. He went, I didn't look at it like that. I said, okay, well, we're going to think about that, but then also I want you to consider another alternative. So here's what I came up with, and you just tell me what you think. I think that we should hold off on this until we actually sign the contract with XYZ company, because at least then we have a lot more detail to go on before we present ourselves looking really, really foolish. It's one of those things where you don't want to let the other person know that you're not deprogramming, but you're kind of peeling apart the current plan and then offering another suggestion. You're basically walking them down the thought process, but you have to do it in a way where they're still the expert. You're asking the questions from the expert. So you would say, okay, so let me get this straight. We're doing this, this, and this. Okay, tell me again, we're doing that because we need whatever the reason is. walk them through that process so that they can do that self-realization. They're going to have their own aha moment. And one of them may even say, "Oh crap," because that's exactly what he said. He's like, "Oh crap. Okay, I didn't think about that." Now the other boss, I don't know if she knew that I had the conversation with him, but she wasn't happy when he did a turnaround and decided to go against the advice that she offered. The disadvantage of having to work for someone who's easily influenced is you're going to find yourself in a more protective role than you may be comfortable with. You're going to feel responsible for making sure that they don't get taken advantage of. And you're going to find yourself doing a lot more assessments on those who come around you, if they have genuine intentions, if they're going to create more work for you by wrongly influencing your leader. But that's part of the job. But that's how I would go about that. And I hope that helps.
Erica, we have a fantastic question, kind of turning the tables here about how we can help build self-esteem and confidence in those around us. So this could be in your personal life, maybe family members, but also even just in your office. If you have colleagues that you think really could use it, what are some strategies you have for helping lift those around us as far as confidence and self-esteem?
Now, the confidence and self-esteem in general is a really huge topic. If it's confidence and self-esteem in performing their tasks, I have a direct answer for that. I'll give you that one now, but I'll give you another one for if it's in general. So if someone is struggling with their competence and you know that they're competent, but maybe something happened and their self-esteem or confidence is a little shaken, whatever it is that they are proficient in, maybe creating spreadsheets. I go back to spreadsheets because I can't stand them. I will ask them to help me with that specific thing that they're competent in, even if I know how to do it. And I'll say, you know what, you're so good at that. I really need you to help me with this because I know that I'm going to overlook something and I just don't have the time to go back and fix it. Will you help me with it? When they help you with it, you compliment them, but not in a way that would be deemed as phony or laying it on too thick, because they are competent and they do need a confidence boost. And sometimes that's all it takes. Now, that's if they are lacking their confidence in a very specific task or a job or duty that they're doing. In order to boost someone's self-confidence and the morale in general, that's going to happen over a period of time. And it's going to start with you being the sunshine in the office, not the annoying, over the top, oh my goodness, everything is great all the time person. Like that can work against you. But being the person, that 50-50 rule. So if there's a 50% chance of rain, be the person who says it's a 50% chance of sunshine. Be the person to talk about what's positive about something. Remember, we said how to crush self-doubt. Number 4, I think, was look at all the things that can go right as opposed to what can go wrong. Talk about the good things that they've done. Praise them for that. Ask them about their lives. That is crucial. That is so important. There are so many things that happen in our personal lives that people at work are not made aware of. And sometimes all it takes is one person to sit down with them at their desk, at lunch or whatever, and just say, hey, your son had a soccer game last Saturday, right? I heard you talking about that. How'd that go? And just talk to them. Some people are not listened at home. And if they feel like they're not being listened to at work as well, that is a time bomb waiting to explode. So you be the one to inquire about their personal and their professional lives. You remember I said to schedule time to do absolutely nothing? Maybe you want to schedule time to just check in. One of my colleagues does that for me. I love her to life. And she'll call me and say, I have it on my calendar to check in with you and see how I can be of service to you. And it just brought me to tears. I said, thank you, because I'm the go-to person. Everybody comes to Erica when they need stuff. And to have someone who took the time out to schedule time to check in with me to see what I need is literally a lifesaver. I hope that helps.
Erica, this will be our last question today.
Mhm.
How do you suggest dealing with a micromanager? How do you step up as a leader when you have a manager who is micromanaging?
So my comment to a micromanager is usually, or question I have to a micromanager, it sounds something like this. I may say, is there something that I failed to do, or is there something within the task that you offered me that maybe you forgot to explain to me? I'm trying to figure out why they're there, basically hovering over my shoulder or sending me 10 emails in one day about very specific things that we've gone over already. So the question in the moment leads them down the path of, we've talked about this, I am doing it, but if you see that there's room for me to do something better, please let me know that. Also, I would formally request just a private one-on-one conversation. And I mean conversation. We don't want to make it an interrogation, but I would start with an observation. So I may say, hey, Mary, listen, when you came over to the desk and you just wanted to make sure that I had this done and I had that done, I want to make sure that I'm meeting expectations. Is there something I'm doing to give you the impression that I'm not going to be able to finish it? And if they say, no, 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 I'm just, I'm very proficient that way. You're very competent. Then I would go into, I'm glad to hear that. And thank you for that. But when you come over to the desk, it gives me the impression that you don't think I'm doing a good job. And if there's something I need to improve upon, by all means, tell me. But if I'm doing it correctly, please understand that coming over or asking me about it several times leads me to believe that I'm not. And just leave it there. Allow them to respond. That's a really tough one, because depending on their personality, they might get defensive. They might think that you're attacking their management style, and you're not attacking it. You're really just trying to get them to ease up. And you can also set up something where you say, how about at the end of the day, we go over everything that I've gone over, or maybe I can email you the tasks that I've performed to make sure that I'm on top of things. You can offer suggestions. The personality type is going to play a really huge role in how that conversation is going to go. But formally asking for a one-on-one is really good. And in the moment, just ask them if there's something that they can do in the moment to improve upon the task at hand. Because you're basically saying, would you please stop standing over my shoulder right now? But that's just a different way of saying that. I hope that helps you.
Erica, thank you so much for being here today and taking the time to speak with all of us, and really for all of the work you're doing to progress the administrative profession. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. I'm happy to do it. Thank you for having me.
And Erica will actually be leading a workshop on communication and leadership development specifically for executive assistants at the ELS forums in New York City, Charlotte, Nashville, and Columbus. So if you are in those markets, come on out to the forum, and it would be lovely to meet you all in person and have a chance to attend one of Erica's workshops. Before signing off, I have a few final reminders. Today's ELSX was recorded. It'll be sent to you tomorrow via email, along with a certificate of attendance. And you can also download a copy of the slides before you log off today under the handout tab on the toolbar. Our next ELSX will take place on March 14th, and we are going to talk about why your salary is not enough and how to better negotiate your worth. You can register for that or any of our upcoming webinars at elsforum.com. I hope you have enjoyed today's webinar, and a final thank you to everyone for joining us and for participating. We hope you have a wonderful week, and I wish you continued success. Take care.